Welcome to another edition of Breaking News brought to you by Source Selection Soundbites. Today we will discuss the case of General Revenue Corporation, or GRC, decided at the GAO. This procurement was executed under the authorities of FAR 12 and 15 procedures. In this case, the agency published a solicitation to obtain support via 3 indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts. Award was to be made to the responsible offerer or offerers that submitted a proposal that conformed to the solicitation and was determined to be the most advantageous to the government. For the purposes of determining which proposals were the most advantageous, the agency considered 3 factors. 1. Past performance. 2. Management approach. And 3. Small business participation. The agency evaluated all proposals and selected the awardees. Shortly thereafter, the agency distributed notices to offerers on December 9, 2016, which advised that in accordance with FAR Part 15.506, post-award debriefing of offerers, you may request a debriefing in writing within 3 days of the date of receipt of this letter. Following the receipt of debriefing requests, the agency responded to offerers in writing on December 29th. The letters, which were styled as informational briefings, indicated that, while debriefings are not required in this procurement, the agency is voluntarily providing this debriefing in writing, in accordance with FAR 52.212-1L, debriefing. GRC had already filed its protest, but other protesters filed their protest against the agency's actions shortly thereafter. The agency sought dismissal of a number of protest grounds, arguing that they were untimely. Specifically, they contended that any protest grounds that were known or reasonably could have been known at the time of the agency's December 9th award notices had to be filed within 10 days of the notices, as opposed to within 10 days of receipt of the agency's voluntary informational briefings that were provided on December 29th. According to the agency and several interveners, the timeliness exception for requested and required debriefings set forth in our bid protest regulations, 4 CFR subsection 21.2A2, is inapplicable in this FAR Part 12 procurement. En route to finding against the agency, the GAO said, the procurement here was a commercial item procurement conducted in accordance with FAR Part 12, using the negotiated procurement policies and procedures established under FAR Part 15, which requires a debrief. Moreover, they continued, notwithstanding arguments to the contrary, we do not find that FAR Clause 52.212-1L is inconsistent with this conclusion. Specifically, that clause sets forth the information that will be disclosed if a post-award debriefing is given to requesting offerers. It does not, however, establish when an agency is to provide a debriefing. Rather, consistent with the provisions of FAR 12.102b, whether a debriefing is to be given depends on the relevant policies and procedures that were applicable to the procurement. Given our conclusion that the policies and procedures of FAR Part 15 apply, we find that the debriefings, which were requested within 3 days of the protesters having received notice of the awards, were required pursuant to the policies established by FAR Part 15, and thus the timeliness exception in 4 CFR subsection 21.2a applies. Thus, the protests are timely and allowed to proceed. Now let's address a few of the lessons learned from this protest. They include 1. 52.212-1L informs the agency of what information is required if a debrief is given. 2. The factor that drives whether a debrief is required is the acquisition procedure combined with FAR Part 12. And 3. If FAR Part 12 is combined with FAR 15 procedures, a debrief is required, and a protest can be filed 10 days after receiving it. In this episode of Source Selection Soundbites, we discuss the GRC case and the application of FAR 15 debrief rules in the commercial environment. This concludes today's Source Selection Soundbite. If this video was helpful, hit the like and subscribe button to ensure you don't miss any new material. If you want more details on the subject, they are available on the Source Selection Answer app. It contains lectures, quizzes, court cases, sample documents, and more material that allows practitioners to quickly obtain actionable knowledge. Thanks for watching. See you next time.